and welcome to this podcast, The 5 Superpowers of Women in M&A, the unique skills and advantages women possess in deal making. Our guest for today is Jennifer Fondrevay. Although she needs no introduction, I would still like to do a short one. Jennifer is the founder and chief humanity officer of Day One Ready M&A Consultancy. She guides CEOs, business owners, entrepreneurs, and their executives through the expected people challenges of business transitions. She is popularly known as the M&A whisperer in the industry. She is a global speaker and the author of international best-selling book, Now What? A Survivor's Guide for Thriving Through Mergers and Acquisitions. On behalf of the team at MergerWare, I extend a very warm welcome to you, Jennifer. Thank you for taking the time. Okay. To set the context for today's podcast, I would like to mention that though women's representation in the M&A leadership has historically not been that great, but in the recent past, gender diversity in the boardroom has accelerated. So, Jennifer, I would request you to throw some light on how women leaders have made inroads into M&A leadership. Over to you, Jennifer.
Well, thank you. And thank you. I appreciate the fact that you think I need no introduction. I don't think I'm at that point yet, but I appreciate the sentiment nonetheless. I think there are a number of ways that women are making progress in mergers and acquisitions, both in terms of what they bring to the deal-making scenario, but equally as well in the human capital space. And so as I've talked to women in mergers and acquisitions, we've agreed women have some unique superpowers that they bring, not to the detriment of men, but that they are skills and expertise that women can bring. So if you want, we could talk through the 5 and go back and forth a little bit. How does that sound?
Yes, sure. Let's. I'm very keen to listen to the superpowers that you're going to talk about. So please go ahead.
Well, and I'd love for you to let me know if you agree as I list off the superpowers. So the first one, and again, this comes from me having spoken to a number of women who are in private equity, investment banking, and equally also in the human capital area. As you well know, with MergerWare, there are so many parts and pieces to mergers and acquisitions, and I'm thrilled to see more women entering deal making overall. But the first one is that women tend to do a better job of illuminating the human side of mergers and acquisitions, recognizing that once the deal is done, that's when the work really begins in order for the value to be created. That the focus up front on the transaction is critical. The due diligence, that's critical. All of those components are critical, but where really success is determined or not is in that integration period. And women can see the human side, how the personalities will work well together, where there might be some issues and challenges. And repeatedly, actually, because I even have started to poll men on this as well, they've agreed. Frankly, it's why I wrote my book on mergers and acquisitions. I had a male CEO say to me after I interviewed him for the book, he said, you know, a man would never write this. A man just wouldn't see some of what you've brought up, the emotional aspects of mergers and acquisitions, but it's a book that needs to be written. And so I'm grateful for him giving me that nudge to say, while men don't always see these things, women do, and you need to write this book.
Yeah, I totally agree with you, Jennifer. Even like so many studies have shown that the empathy factor is higher in women as compared to men. And as you rightly mentioned, empathy is a very critical factor in M&A related transitions. There is so much chaos. So empathy is really important, and women can bring that in the deal making process. Yeah.
And I think too, that ability to see the human side, you know, the second superpower that women have is that women's intuition just sees things, right? So not only seeing the human side, but there's an intuition that women have. Again, I always want to be sensitive to this. This is not to denigrate men in this conversation, but I think these superpowers women tend to repress. And when I've had this conversation, I shared this philosophy of women having superpowers at an Exponent Women event a couple of years ago. And a woman shared a story where they were in the middle of a deal, and she just had a feeling that the other side was holding back information. She couldn't quite pinpoint it. And so in an upcoming meeting, she challenged one of the comments, and it became quickly apparent that they had not only been holding back, but they had been holding back critical information. And her male colleague said afterwards, "Thank God you picked up on that. We would never have known that was the issue had you not." And she confessed, she said, "I was worried about telling him that it was just my intuition." But she said, "I felt it was important to say it was thanks to my intuition that I picked up on that, and that we got the information that we needed." So again, women's intuition can see things that may not be obvious to others. And I consider that a superpower as well.
Yes, that is really an interesting story that you shared. It's true. There are certainly a lot of unforeseen challenges and risks that arise during the whole process. And as you just shared an example, how women leaders can anticipate them, see them, and sense them in a way. And of course, if we can sense the challenge and risk way in advance, it can be dealt with in a much better way. So yes, I agree.
And what was interesting in this conversation, because it was an older female lawyer who shared her story, and a younger woman who I believe was an investment banker came off of mute and said, "Oh, thank God you said that." Because she actually said, as a junior person, she's nervous when she's seeing something that just her intuition tells her something's off here. She was nervous to say anything. And we all said it. So it was kind of funny. We all said at once, don't hold back, because that is a superpower. That is a skill set. And thankfully, what I would say is the number of men that I spoke to about this said, "Oh yeah, thank God. We've appreciated when we've had a woman on our team who shares when she just feels something's not right." He said, because oftentimes, and this is a gentleman saying, and he said, men can be obtuse, which I agreed with in that comment. But and they said it's a huge benefit to them in that deal making process. The third one that I think is fascinating, but so many women shared stories about this as well, is that men open up to women in ways that they wouldn't open up to another man. And there were a number of instances that women shared where they were far along in the deal making process, and some men shared with women, either anxiety that they might have about the deal. A woman shared that the deal was the gentleman who had started his company, and his son was part of the succession plan and would be moving up. And he opened up to her about his fear about whether his son was ready, whether this was really going to work. And so by him opening up and her being able to talk to him about what his concerns were, they were better able to address some of that early on, as opposed to that all coming out after the deal was done. And again, it's a superpower that women don't always, I will say, lean into. They may not recognize how powerful that is, but women equally can ask questions that way. They may get more from a gentleman in a deal. He may open up to her more, and that can be invaluable information, because those conversations, being more as enlightened as you can be before the deal is done, is very is critical to deal success. So I consider that equally a superpower.
Yes, totally agree. Because especially during the due diligence process, the trust and comfort between the buyer and the seller is quite critical to ensure the due diligence is done in a transparent and proper way. So of course, a women leader in the M&A deal scene can really be very helpful.
Right.
Yes.
Right.
Yeah.
Now this fourth one, the fourth and fifth. So women have 3 superpowers. And of course, in the dialogue, women came up with 2 more, which I thought was fabulous, that we all agreed that there were 2 more superpowers. This fourth one,
there might be more. Maybe you in your further events, you might come up There are more
That's
than
true.
5.
When you post this, we'll ask at the
Yes,
end. And if you think women have more superpowers, please share those in the
sure.
comments because I would love to hear them. This fourth one, I think men might challenge, but definitely women agree that women can simplify messaging so that the people can understand the message. And I come from an advertising and marketing and communications background, and I will tell you, there's a lot of women in marketing and communications. You tend to have more women in that. And so I think this fourth point of women can simplify the message so that people can understand it goes to when the deal is done and the vision is being shared. So often the vision is shared and it's at a 30,000 foot level. People have a very hard time understanding what the vision is, where they're going, how they can contribute, what value, why was the deal done? And if the communication of that vision isn't simple and in terms that people can understand and identify with and see their role in it, that can really undermine the success of a deal. And so this fourth point, totally agreed with as women chimed in about other superpowers, women's ability to simplify the message so that people understand not only what the vision is, but the role that they can play is very critical to deal success.
Yeah. Even we have observed that most of the challenges in people integration arise because of lack of communication or very sophisticated and complex way of communicating with the people, which really doesn't get the message across. And hence, that might even lead to overall failure of the deal. So in that way, I agree with you that women can simplify message, and simplified messaging can really help shape the future of the transaction. I agree.
And it takes a while, right? Like even when the message is first shared, you and I both know mergers and acquisitions, just the term comes with a lot of negative baggage. So the workforce, when they first hear about the deal, they stop thinking about the company and they start thinking about themselves.
Yes.
Automatically. And it's understandable, right? Do I still have a job? Will I still have my same boss? Am I going to work with the same people? Will I have the same title? Do I keep my vacation days? All of those, that's what immediately goes through their head. So that messaging, that vision has to be repeated. So not only in simple terms, but repeatedly. And so women equally from that communication standpoint understand that there's a communications cadence. There's a time for every message and a repetition so that people really, when they're ready to hear the information, that the information is being shared and in a way that they can understand. So that's, to me, that's one of the critical superpowers that women have. And then the last superpower, which men might challenge this one, but I think we could arm wrestle over this fifth superpower, but that women better anticipate future challenges. They're more inclined to say, what if, given their intuition on how things could go wrong. And this is, they could be accused of being Chicken Little, but I would say it's more scenario planning, more the possibility of, okay, let's say the deal is done. What are the ways that we could run into issues? And I've actually seen this repeatedly, right? Where a gentleman might say, oh, you're borrowing trouble. Why even worry about that? We don't know if that's going to happen. That's true. We don't know if it's going to happen, but it could. So anticipating, okay, what are the ways that we might face challenges, right? Maybe the government will come out with a new regulation that hinders our ability to launch the product. Maybe the competition is faster on a product that undermines why we went after this deal in the first place. There are a number of scenarios that can play out that you want to be prepared for. It's why I do pre-mortems with leadership teams to just do that scenario planning. It's why the military has drills for their military, right? So that they can be prepared for any type of scenario. And in this case, women have a greater tendency to say, well, what could go wrong? How do we need to be prepared for that? And how do we need to plan for that? So that's the fifth superpower of women.
Yeah, women are known to be more observant and more keen on noticing things. Maybe it's even studies have shown that. So It really, I agree with you that they can be more observant and be able to anticipate challenges and future risks more keenly than men can do. So
And it's why it's been wonderful as I've talked to men who are in mergers and acquisitions. They've said we applaud more women entering. It's critically important to deal success. The statistic that continues, the 70 to 90% failure rate just of business transformations in general. So not exclusively to mergers and acquisitions, but the
right,
more that women have a voice and are feeling confident. I want to say, because there's more women entering, while the percentage is small, there's more women entering, but having the confidence to have a voice. And that's why I thought it was so great, Ritu, that you asked me to come on so we could talk about women's superpowers. Because the more that women recognize they have a unique skill set to bring to deal making, I think the more successful deals will be.
right. Thank you. Okay, before we close, would you like to share any quick tips for women out there who are listening to the podcast and who are looking at building a great career in M&A?
I think we covered them. I would say
Yes,
the
yes, right.
headline comment for me would be don't hold back.
The superpowers.
If your intuition is telling you something, if you see an opportunity to have a conversation where a gentleman that you're seeing in the deal where you're just sensing something's off, don't hesitate to ask and to get that feedback, if you will, because all of that knowledge can help to deal success, can be a significant contributor. And I think for junior women in particular, who may be wondering, oh, is that okay? The more you show confidence in your skill set and your abilities beyond what everyone else is contributing. So that's why we call these superpowers. I think not only will you find success, but you'll find more joy, and you'll be excited because there are things that you can bring to the deal that others can't.
Sure. And it was really interesting. Even I am myself feeling that I shouldn't really hold back on my superpowers. So thank you so much,
Yes,
Jennifer. Yeah, please
you
go ahead.
bet.
Yeah. Thank you for taking the time and sharing your experience and knowledge and insights with us. It was really great having you with us.